I walked away from a 7-year friendship with a single mom who relied on me for everything, and when she announced her fifth pregnancy, and I still don't know if I'm the villain or I'm 44F. My friend is 30F. We haven't spoken since New Year's Day, and while I'm trying to keep the story to a manageable length, the truth is, our history is long and layered. And maybe that's the part that hurts the most, how long we spent stitching a life together, only for it to unravel so fast. We met back in 2016, when I was barely surviving a heartbreak that felt like it had cracked the foundation of who I was. The breakup was ugly, emotionally abusive, manipulative, soul-destroying, and she was there for all of it. Funny enough, we met through my ex. Her then-husband was the son of my ex's best friend. That's how she ended up witnessing the Chernobyl-level fallout of my breakup. And in the midst of all that wreckage, we somehow bonded. Despite the 14-year age gap, something just clicked. She was young, only 23 then, with a 3-year-old daughter and pregnant with her second child. But even in her own whirlwind of responsibilities, she made time for me. She showed up when no one else did, brought over food, called just to check in, sat with me in silence on days when words were too heavy. And I remember thinking, how can someone so young be so emotionally intelligent? I was 37, but she taught me how to keep breathing, how to just exist again. I was there when her son was born. Life moved forward. We spent time together nearly every day. Her kids became like family to me. Her husband and I were never particularly close, but we got along well enough when they'd all come over to hang out for hours. We'd cook, watch movies, sit around and talk about life and all the messy corners of it. My depression lingered. Some days it still owned me, but she stood in that darkness beside me and never once tried to rush me out of it. She just held space. Eventually, her marriage ended. It needed to. Her husband had always been controlling, jealous, and emotionally toxic. I watched him gaslight her, wear down her confidence. And while I used to think she was the victim, over time I began to understand that the situation was murkier. She had her own flaws, her own tendencies to create chaos. But at the time, I wasn't interested in judging. I just wanted to help her get through it. And so I stepped up. Fully. I became the backup parent, the emotional anchor, the late-night therapist. I helped with the kids, cleaned when she couldn't, ran errands, split groceries. We leaned on each other. I was her emergency contact, her stand-in partner, her emotional life raft. We even got jobs at the same company so we could spend even more time together. That felt like such a gift at the time, being able to work alongside someone who felt like family. It was around then that she fell for someone we worked with. Fell hard. He was charming, sure, but unstable. And when she got pregnant early in the relationship, he ghosted. Just vanished. Left her to raise yet another child alone. I was furious on her behalf, but I didn't say I told you so. I just did what I always did. I stepped up. COVID hit. Our company went under. Suddenly we were both jobless, her with 3 kids under 10, no partner, no money, no help. So I became the help. I bought groceries. Paid her phone bill a couple times. Picked up prescriptions. Helped with remote school. Watched the kids so she could nap or cry, or just disappear for an hour. I gave her money I didn't really have. I gave her time I was running out of. I showed up when I didn't even know how to show up for myself. And I never resented it. Not once. She even got me flowers and a card on Father's Day one year. "You've been more of a dad to my kids than their actual fathers," she said. And I cried, because it felt seen. It felt like all the invisible, exhausting work I was doing finally had a name. Love. Not romantic love, not sibling love, not parental love, just deep, committed, we've been through hell together kind of love. But then something shifted. Slowly, at first. She started pulling away, making plans without me, not responding to texts for days. Her life got busier again. She got into yet another messy relationship, and this one seemed even more chaotic. I worried. I voiced my concerns gently. She didn't like that. Said I was judging her. I reminded her I'd never judged her, that I'd only ever shown up. That maybe, just maybe, I was worried because I loved her. Because I'd seen this cycle before. And it always ended with her hurt, and me picking up the pieces. Life rolled on, even though New Year's came and went without her. I wasn't surprised. In hindsight, I think she simply ran out of space in her head for me. But at the time, I just felt the silence. After we lost contact, I met my now husband. He's kind, grounded, emotionally available, Everything I hadn't realized I needed until I found it. We fell into easy rhythm. While she was disappearing, I was building stability. Meanwhile, her life became more chaotic. She dated wildly, like she was searching for anything to fill the emptiness. And then, as if on cue, she reached out to me one day and asked if my new boyfriend had any single friends she could meet. Naively, I said yes, and even introduced her to someone. Fast forward 2 months later, she's pregnant, with her 4th child. My husband, ever the protective friend, cut ties with his childhood buddy after that. He just couldn't handle the cycle anymore, an endless loop of hope and heartbreak. I understood. I was relieved, even, but also saw more clearly how much she leaned on me. By now this friendship had been going on for 6 years. At first it had been true reciprocity. We supported each other. But over time, I had become her emotional and financial crutch. She'd call me for rides to appointments, need gas money, ask for lunch, need loans of $50 to $300 every week. I'd wire cash for birthday gifts, Christmas presents, medicine she couldn't afford yet. Always with the promise, I'll pay you back. And she always did, but never fully. Always owed me more than she'd returned. I had even borrowed from her sometimes, though never with the same frequency. We called it the bestie bank. It got to the point where I justified it all. What did I have to complain about? I had a stable partner, a steady job. How would I know the stress of leaning on a never-there ex, the weight of groceries stacking up, or the shame in asking for money again? So, I absorbed the chaos and kept giving. Then something shifted. At 6 years into our friendship, she confided in me that after baby number 4, she was thinking of having her tubes tied. I wholeheartedly encouraged it. I helped her research doctors, AVG procedures, where she might find a clinic that would see her without private health care. She seemed relieved, like for once she was doing something just for herself, not planning the next crisis. The baby came. Beautiful but overwhelming. For kids under 10, 2 in the span of 2 years. A messy, draining custody battle with her ex for the older 2, court dates, emotional exhaustion. She wasn't working, couldn't handle childcare costs. Legally, on paper, they had joint custody, but in reality, she was the constant caregiver. Court dates, daycare needs, postnatal exhaustion. She still relied on me. More than ever. Texts at odd hours, crying after midnight because she didn't know how she would make it to daycare the next day. Requests for help picking up a prescription, cash again to cover rent, gas to get to yet another appointment. Not because she was irresponsible, but because she was drowning and the current kept pulling her under. And I was there. I'd leave work early to drive her kids to her court hearings. I dropped off groceries in late evening runs. I came through with gas cards, self-checkout bags, quiet presence when she was sobbing in front of me. All the while I was building my stable life, going on dates with my loving now husband, buying a home together. At the same time as we melted down, crumbled apart, she leaned harder into me. Not out of malice or manipulation, but because I'd been there auto-repeatedly, and in crisis, support becomes a habit that's hard to break. I never begrudged it. I didn't mark each loan or text her about returning money. I just gave. Because I understood stress. I wasn't mad at her, but if I'm honest, sometimes I resented how no matter how much I gave, there was always more. And rarely a thank you, rarely a sign that she recognized my own emotional margin was thinning. I forced a boundary once. Said politely, "I'm not in a place to loan money right now." She agreed, but when the text popped up the next week for gas, I paid again. I couldn't look her in the eye and refuse. Because that same instinct that held me through her depression in 2016 still pulsed. Don't abandon. Don't turn your back, especially not to someone you love. That fear, that responsibility, weighs heavy. I'm 44 now. I've grown up. My husband makes me feel safer than whose house I'll stay at in an emergency, or whether the lights stay on in January. We have plans, goals, tiny comforts that come from routine, but also from choosing each other every day. I love that my partner remembers to ask what I want for dinner. I love that he notices when I'm tired and offers to cook. Not for grand, sweeping gestures. Just small daily care. Meanwhile, my friend, the one who asked me to support her pregnancy, her custody battle, her mental health, her postpartum, her finances, still leans on me. And I'm learning, maybe I'm allowed to start leaning back. Maybe I'm allowed to say no. Maybe friendship as made of constant crisis isn't healthy. I don't know yet what boundaries look like. I think what broke me wasn't the big things. Not the court dates. Not the overdraft notices. Not even the night she called crying at 2:47 a.m., whispering that her ex had threatened to take the kids again, and she didn't know where her lawyer was. No, what broke me was New Year's Eve. Because I had always thought she'd show up. That no matter how fractured our paths had become, how long the silences grew, there'd be that knock on the door or that message with confetti emojis and a heart. Because 6 years build something sacred. I believed that. But midnight came and went, and the phone stayed dark. I waited, like some fool left standing in the snow, thinking maybe I'd missed the signal. Maybe the love I gave, the hundreds of hours, the grocery bags, the birthday parties, the texts sent just to remind her she mattered. Maybe all of it meant enough that I wouldn't be forgotten. But I was. And something inside me quietly, bitterly, shifted. For months, I tried to convince myself that maybe she was just busy, tired, overwhelmed, that she'd lost her phone or was in the middle of another emotional fallout with one of the many men who passed through her life like ships with broken rudders, never anchoring, always colliding. But when her silence stretched into spring, I realized something. I'd been grieving a friendship that had ended long before that countdown to January. I just hadn't noticed. Because grief in friendships is sneaky like that. It doesn't always come with fights or betrayal. Sometimes it just creeps in through missed calls, borrowed money never mentioned again, forgotten birthdays, and empty thank yous. Sometimes love turns into obligation, and you keep showing up because you don't know how to stop. Looking back now, I think I kept trying to rescue someone who didn't want to be rescued, not really. She wanted a lifeboat, not a lighthouse. She didn't want to steer herself back to shore. She just needed someone to keep her from drowning while she chased another storm. And that someone was always me. I kept pouring from my cup, convincing myself I had enough. That love was supposed to hurt sometimes, that being tired was just part of being dependable. I ignored the knots in my chest and the days I cried after she left. Cried because I felt used, invisible, but too ashamed to say it out loud. I mean, who gets resentful helping a single mom? Who gets tired of being needed? Apparently me. But here's the thing, when I met my husband, I started to feel what mutual care actually looks like. He never made me feel guilty for needing something. Never made me explain why I needed to be heard. And somewhere between our quiet dinners and grocery store handholding, I began to realize that love isn't supposed to feel like constant rescue. It's supposed to feel like rest. And I wasn't resting in this friendship. I was unraveling. I don't hate her. I don't even think she's a bad person. She's doing her best in a life that's been wildly unfair to her. But I can't keep bleeding for someone who never learned how to stop cutting. The silence from New Year's wasn't just a missed text, it was a mirror. One that forced me to finally ask, what am I holding on to? And what would happen if I just let go? The last time we spoke, months ago now, I had dropped off a few things she needed for the kids. Diapers, some cough medicine, and a box of granola bars. She hugged me. She said, I don't know what I'd do without you. And the words didn't land like they used to. They felt heavy, like an anchor. So I smiled, told her to take care. And I haven't heard from her since. I was definitely absent by the end. Not physically maybe, not entirely, but emotionally, I had already started to drift. Our friendship had slowly dissolved into silence, half-hearted meme shares, and the occasional phone call that barely skimmed the surface. No more heart-to-hearts. No more staying up late just to be there for her breakdowns. It had all gone dull, like an overplayed song you used to love but can't bring yourself to hear anymore. And I think, deep down, she knew it too. But I kept pretending. Because that's what I did. Pretend I was okay with it. Pretend I still had the capacity to keep pouring from a cup that had long been cracked and empty. I started talking to my husband about it, about the guilt, the constant drain, how to end a friendship like this without feeling like the worst person alive. Because how do you tell someone who depends on you that you're stepping away? That you can't be their everything anymore? Then, just around New Year's, the phone rang. Her name lit up my screen and something in me twisted. Not quite dread, not quite hope. Just that numb space where obligation used to live. She was pregnant. Again. I don't even remember the beginning of the call. It's all static now. But I remember the moment the dam finally broke. I just lost it. All of it, the patience, the understanding, the compassion I'd stockpiled like a survivalist for the last 7 years, snapped. My voice cracked before I even realized I was yelling. 5 kids. 5? By 4 different fathers? I could hear her gasp, but I didn't stop. You can't even afford the ones you have now. You can't even take care of yourself, and now there's going to be another child that you'll need help with, and I know what that means. I know what this means for me. Because I had lived it. Every single cycle. Every time a man walked out. Every broken promise. Every emergency text and midnight crisis. Every call that started with, "Can you just," and ended with me canceling my plans to bail her out. I had written resumes and cover letters for her. I filled out daycare forms and job applications like it was my own future on the line. I made phone calls to government offices on her behalf. I played therapist, social worker, mother, partner, co-parent, and friend. And still, it was never enough. I had even written breakup texts for her when she couldn't face the men who ghosted her. I'd watched her cling to one disaster after another, like if she just loved them enough, they'd finally stay. But they never did. And the fallout always fell into my lap. So, yes, I yelled. I cried. I shook with the kind of fury that only comes when you've ignored your own suffering for too long. And I told her I was done. Really, finally done. That I couldn't do it anymore. That I wouldn't. She didn't fight me. She was quiet. Maybe stunned. Maybe she knew it had been coming for a long time, and she just didn't want to look it in the face. We hung up without ceremony. No goodbye. No final words. Just a deadline and an aching silence. That was 6 months ago. Sometimes I think I miss her. I definitely miss her kids. I wonder if they ask where I went. If they remember me helping with homework or wrapping birthday gifts late into the night, buying them Halloween costumes, or showing up at school events like I was their godparent. But the guilt. God, the guilt. It creeps in late at night. It whispers that I abandoned her, that I turned my back on someone who needed me, that I walked away right when she was about to drown, that I might have been the only stable thing she had left. She's alive. She's managing. I can't say thriving because I doubt it. But she's functioning at least. Maybe she found someone else to lean on. Maybe she's finally doing the things she promised for years she'd get around to. I don't know. And I haven't checked. And maybe that's what growth is. Not just walking away, but staying away. Staying away when you want to rush back in. When you replay her sobbing on the phone, or her son asking if you'll come over to watch cartoons again. When you remember how you used to laugh together, and how that laugh was real, even when everything else was falling apart. Because in the end, I gave and gave and gave, and she let me, and I let her. So maybe the real guilt isn't about abandoning her. Maybe it's about abandoning myself for so long. I don't hate her. I wish her peace. I wish her healing. I wish her kids joy and safety and a future where they're not scrambling the way their mother had to. But I don't wish to be part of that story anymore. Not unless it's mutual. Not unless I'm met where I am, not just leaned on because I've proven I won't break. Because I will. I nearly did. So was it right to walk away? Yes. Was it easy? Never. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do, the most loving thing you can do, is finally, heartbreakingly, stop showing up. And let someone else, maybe even themselves, learn how to stand.